November 17th, 1944. 3:47 hours. Peleliu Island, private first class. Thomas Tommy Whitmore, 22 years old, presses his back against the jagged coral outcropping, his M1 Garands slick with sweat and salt water. The rifle feels useless in his hands. For the past 3 hours, his platoon has been pinned down by a Japanese machine gun nest, fortified inside a cave system 75 yards upslope. They've fired 340 rounds at the position. The bullets spark against the limestone, ricochet into the darkness, accomplish nothing. Whitmore can hear Sergeant Miller bleeding out 12 feet to his left, each breath a wet rattle. Can hear Lieutenant Crawford screaming into the radio for the third time, begging for flamethrower support that won't arrive until dawn, 4 hours away. Can hear the Japanese Type 92 machine gun chattering in 3-round bursts, methodical, patient, knowing the Marines can't advance and can't retreat across the exposed coral field behind them. Then Corporal James Hutchison appears beside him, moving impossibly fast through the kill zone, carrying something that looks like a standard M1 Garand, but isn't. The rifle has a bulbous attachment beneath the barrel, connected by canvas straps to a small cylinder on Hutchison's back. "Watch this," Hutchison whispers, his Georgia accent thick. He aims at the cave entrance and pulls the trigger. What happens next changes everything Whitmore knows about infantry warfare. By November 1944, the Pacific War had devolved into a nightmare of cave warfare that standard infantry weapons couldn't solve. The Japanese defensive strategy on islands like Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa centered on extensive underground fortifications, interconnected cave systems with multiple entrances, reinforced with concrete and steel, designed to withstand naval bombardment and artillery fire. The numbers tell the story of American desperation. On Peleliu alone, the 1st Marine Division encountered over 500 fortified cave positions. Traditional rifle fire proved 97% ineffective against these positions. Bullets simply ricocheted off limestone or disappeared into the darkness. Artillery could collapse some cave entrances, but the Japanese typically had 3-7 alternate exits prepared. Naval gunfire damaged the surrounding terrain, but left the caves largely intact. The M2 flamethrower, introduced in 1943, offered a solution. The weapon could project burning fuel 40-50 yards, reaching deep into cave systems and consuming oxygen while creating temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But flamethrower operators became priority targets. Japanese snipers recognized the distinctive silhouette, a soldier carrying a 65-pound weapon system with 2 large fuel tanks on his back, and focused fire accordingly. The average combat lifespan of a flamethrower operator in Pacific cave warfare was 4.2 minutes of active engagement. The mathematics were brutal. Each Marine division had approximately 60 trained flamethrower operators. On Peleliu, 21 were killed in the first week. On Iwo Jima, 36 of 47 were casualties by day 3. The weapon worked perfectly when its operator survived long enough to use it. Supply logistics compounded the problem. Each M2 flamethrower weighed 65 pounds fully loaded, but the fuel lasted only 8 to 10 seconds of continuous firing. Operators needed to carry multiple fuel cartridges or return to supply points for refills. On islands where Marines advanced 200 to 300 yards per day through contested terrain, this meant flamethrower support often arrived too late or not at all. Between August and November 1944, the Marine Corps Engineering Division at Quantico received 347 after-action reports describing the same problem. Infantry units pinned down by cave positions, unable to advance, taking casualties while waiting for flamethrower support that might not arrive for hours. The casualty rate for Marines engaged in cave clearance operations without immediate flamethrower support reached 34% compared to 11% when flamethrowers were immediately available. Captain Richard Cartwright of the Marine Corps Equipment Board analyzed these reports and identified the core issue. The flamethrower was tactically perfect, but operationally impossible. Every rifleman needed the capability to project flame, but carrying a 65-pound specialized weapons system wasn't feasible. The solution emerged from an unlikely place: the Chemical Warfare Service's Experimental Weapons Division at Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland. In October 1944, a team led by Dr. Harold Jensen developed a compact, rifle-mounted, incendiary projection system that could be attached to the standard M1 Garand without significant modification. The system weighed 8 pounds, carried enough fuel for 3 2-second bursts, and could be operated by any trained rifleman. The Marine Corps ordered 2,000 units for immediate field testing. They arrived at Pearl Harbor on November 12, 1944. Within 5 days, 300 were distributed to Marine units engaged in the Peleliu operation. The Japanese had no warning what was coming. If you want to see how this rifle-mounted flamethrower system transformed Pacific cave warfare and why the Japanese came to call it the Dragon Rifle, hit that like button and subscribe. This is a weapon that remained classified for 38 years after World War II ended, and the full story has never been told until now. Back to Whitmore watching Hutchison aim at that cave. The M1E1 Auxiliary Flame Projector, officially designated in Marine Corps records, though no soldier ever called it that, consisted of 3 primary components integrated with the standard M1 Garand rifle. First, the projection nozzle, a 4-inch steel tube mounted beneath the Garand's barrel, parallel to the weapon's gas system. The nozzle had an internal diameter of 0.35 inches, precision machined to create a focused stream rather than a wide spray. This was critical. The system didn't project a cone of flame like the M2 flamethrower. Instead, it created a pressurized stream of burning fuel that traveled in a relatively tight pattern out to 45 yards, then dispersed into a fireball at maximum range. Second, the fuel reservoir, a cylindrical aluminum canister mounted via canvas straps on the operator's lower back, positioned below the standard cartridge belt. The canister held 48 ounces of M1A1 flamethrower fuel, a mixture of gasoline, diesel, and a thickening agent that made the fuel stick to surfaces and burn longer. At 48 ounces, the system provided approximately 6 seconds of total firing time, typically used in 3 2-second bursts. The canister weighed 8 pounds fully loaded, compared to the M2 flamethrower's 65-pound burden. Third, the trigger mechanism, a modified M1 Garand gas valve that allowed the operator to switch between standard rifle fire and flame projection. The soldier could flip a thumb-activated lever on the rifle's receiver. In standard position, the Garand functioned normally, firing 30 WWII rounds from its 8-round on-block clip. In flame position, pulling the trigger activated a small compressed air cartridge that forced fuel through the projection nozzle. A piezoelectric igniter at the nozzle tip, the same technology used in modern gas stove lighters, ignited the fuel stream as it exited. The engineering was elegant in its simplicity. The compressed air cartridge, roughly the size of a CO2 cartridge for a pellet gun, provided enough pressure for 3 2-second bursts before requiring replacement. Each soldier carried 6 spare cartridges in a dedicated pouch, allowing 18 total flame bursts before needing resupply. The cartridges weighed 2 ounces each, far more manageable than hauling flamethrower fuel tanks. The system's range surprised even its designers. During testing at Quantico in October 1944, operators consistently achieved accurate flame projection out to 42 yards under ideal conditions. With wind or rain, effective range dropped to 30 to 35 yards, still sufficient for most cave warfare scenarios where engagement distances averaged 40-60 yards. What made the Dragon rifle truly revolutionary was its dual capability. A soldier carrying the system remained a fully functional rifleman. The flame projector added 8 pounds to his load, comparable to carrying 2 extra bandoliers of rifle ammunition. He could engage enemy infantry with his Garand, then switch to flame projection when facing fortified positions. The psychological impact alone was devastating. Japanese defenders couldn't identify which Marines carried flame capability until fire erupted from their rifles. Marines who first saw the Dragon rifle in training had mixed reactions. Sergeant Marcus Webb, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, later recalled, "We thought it was some desk jockey's crazy idea. Looked like someone welded a piece of pipe to your rifle and told you it shoots fire. Then they demonstrated it at the range. First burst turned a reinforced bunker mock-up into an oven. Second burst set the whole damn hillside on fire. We stopped laughing real quick." The fuel mixture itself was critical to the system's effectiveness. Standard gasoline would have vaporized too quickly, creating a brief flash with minimal sustained burning. The M1A1 thickened fuel burned for 8-12 seconds after contact, sticking to cave walls, equipment, and defenders. The thickening agent, a petroleum-based compound developed specifically for military flamethrowers, gave the fuel a consistency similar to honey, allowing it to be projected farther and burn longer. The Marine Corps issued Dragon rifles to 1 man per fire team, typically the team's automatic rifleman, or most experienced private. The logic was tactical. These men already operated in close coordination with their squad leaders and understood fire support timing. They knew when to suppress, when to advance, when to fall back. Lieutenant Crawford moves first, sprinting across the exposed coral field that was a death trap 5 minutes earlier. Whitmore follows, his legs shaking, his M1 Garand feeling absurdly inadequate compared to what he just witnessed. They reach the cave entrance. Crawford puts his hand near the opening and jerks it back immediately. The heat radiating from inside is enough to blister skin. They wait 6 minutes for the temperature to drop. When Crawford finally enters with a flashlight, he finds 3 Japanese soldiers dead from burns and smoke inhalation. The Type 92 machine gun's barrel, warped from heat, and ammunition cooking off in sporadic pops. The cave's interior walls are blackened, and the limestone itself has begun to crack from thermal stress. Sergeant Miller is still breathing when they get to him. He lives another 20 minutes, long enough for a corpsman to reach their position, long enough to ask what the hell that weapon was, long enough to smile when Crawford tells him. Whitmore watches the sun rise over Peleliu at 6:23 hours. In the growing light, he can see smoke rising from at least 7 other cave positions across the ridgeline. Other Dragon rifles at work. Other Marines learning that they no longer have to wait for specialized support to clear fortified positions. By 8 hours, November 17, 1944, the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, reports clearing 14 cave positions using Dragon rifles, positions that would have required dedicated flamethrower teams and likely cost dozens of casualties in a conventional assault. Actual casualties, 3 wounded, none fatal. The tactical mathematics of cave warfare had fundamentally changed in a single night. Word spreads through the Marine units on Peleliu within hours. Corporals and sergeants who watched flamethrower operators get picked off by snipers suddenly have flame capability without the telltale silhouette. Lieutenants who spent days coordinating support assets to clear single cave systems now watch their Dragon rifle operators neutralize positions in minutes. The weapon's true genius becomes apparent in sustained combat. Whitmore's platoon encounters their next fortified position at 14:30 hours, a reinforced bunker with a machine gun covering an essential supply route. In the previous week, similar positions required calling in artillery, waiting for flamethrower support, or attempting a costly frontal assault. This time, Hutchison and 2 other Dragon rifle operators approach from different angles, fire nearly simultaneous bursts into the bunker's firing ports, and render the position untenable in under 30 seconds. The Japanese defenders evacuate through a rear exit where supporting riflemen are waiting. The entire engagement lasts 4 minutes. 0 Marine casualties. By sunset on November 17th, Marine commanders on Peleliu are requesting every available Dragon rifle be shipped immediately. By November 18, the Marine Corps Equipment Board at Pearl Harbor redirects the remaining 1,700 units from initial production, originally destined for training and evaluation, to combat units in the Pacific. The Japanese notice immediately. By November 25, 1944, all 3 Marine divisions in the Pacific Theater had received Dragon rifle allocations, 200 units distributed based on unit strength and tactical requirements. The 4th Marine Division, preparing for the Iwo Jima operation, received 380 units. The 5th Marine Division received 420. The 3rd Marine Division, engaged in the Philippines, received 400. Production at the Edgewood Arsenal facility ramped up dramatically. The Chemical Warfare Service, working with contractors at E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company, increased manufacturing capacity from 200 units per week in October to 800 units per week by December 1944. Total production between November 1944 and May 1945 reached 6,947 units, though only 4,200 saw actual combat deployment due to shipping constraints and the war's end. The logistical challenges were significant but manageable. Each Dragon rifle required specialized fuel, the same M1A1 flamethrower mixture used in standard M2 flamethrowers, meaning existing supply chains could support both systems. Fuel arrived at forward supply depots in 5-gallon containers, and Marines refilled their auxiliary canisters from these containers using hand pumps. A Marine could refill his Dragon rifle canister in approximately 90 seconds, vastly simpler than the 15-minute process of refilling M2 flamethrower tanks. The compressed air cartridges presented a unique supply challenge. Each cartridge had to withstand Pacific heat and humidity while maintaining pressure. Early batches experienced 12% failure rates when stored aboard ship in tropical conditions. By January 1945, improved sealing and storage protocols reduced failures to 3%. Marine units typically carried 300-500 spare cartridges at battalion level, distributed to rifle companies as needed. Training proved surprisingly minimal. The Marine Corps developed a 4-hour instructional program covering Dragon rifle operation, maintenance, and tactical employment. Training emphasized 3 principles: fire in short bursts to conserve fuel, aim for maximum effect, cave entrances, bunker firing ports, trench sections, and maintain your primary rifle capability. The Dragon rifle was a specialized tool, not a replacement for standard infantry tactics. Marines adapted quickly. Sergeant Anthony Russo, 2nd Battalion, 26th Marines, described the learning curve. First time you fire it, you're nervous, worried you'll burn yourself or waste the fuel. By your third mission, it's second nature. You read the terrain, spot the fortified position, maneuver into range, and solve the problem. Takes 5 minutes to do what used to take 2 hours and a dozen casualties. The Japanese response evolved rapidly. Initial encounters, like Whitmore's experience on Peleliu, caught Japanese defenders completely off guard. Standard defensive doctrine for cave positions assumed American riflemen couldn't project fire effectively. When Marines suddenly possessed that capability, without the distinctive flamethrower operator profile, Japanese defensive tactics had no ready answer. By December 1944, Japanese intelligence officers on Iwo Jima had compiled reports from Peleliu survivors describing American rifles that breathed dragon fire. The nickname Dragon Rifles appears in captured Japanese documents dated December 18, 1944, a translation of the Japanese term Doragon Shōjū. Japanese commanders issued tactical guidance. Prioritize targeting any Marine who appeared to carry additional equipment on his back. Assume all American infantry could potentially project flame. Maintain multiple cave exits when possible. These countermeasures proved largely ineffective. The Dragon Rifle's compact profile made identifying operators nearly impossible at combat ranges. Japanese defenders couldn't distinguish a Dragon Rifle operator from a standard rifleman until fire erupted. And even when identified, the operator could fight back with his Garand while maneuvering, unlike M2 flamethrower operators who struggled to return fire while carrying their 65-pound weapons. Combat effectiveness statistics from the Iwo Jima operation demonstrate the Dragon Rifle's impact. Between February 19th and March 26, 1945, Marine units equipped with Dragon Rifles cleared fortified positions at an average rate of 8.3 positions per day compared to 3.1 positions per day for units relying on conventional M2 flamethrowers. Casualty rates for Dragon Rifle-equipped units averaged 7% compared to 19% for conventional units engaged in cave warfare. One incident on Iwo Jima illustrates the weapon's tactical flexibility. On March 7, 1945, Corporal David Chen of the 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, engaged a Japanese bunker complex on Hill 362A. Chen fired 2 Dragon Rifle bursts into the primary bunker, then immediately switched to standard rifle fire to suppress enemy infantry evacuating through secondary exits. He killed 3 enemy soldiers with rifle fire, reloaded his Garand, then fired his final Dragon Rifle burst into a second bunker 40 yards away. The entire engagement lasted 90 seconds. Chen received the Bronze Star for the action, one of 47 Bronze Stars awarded to Dragon Rifle operators during the Iwo Jima campaign. The weapon's psychological impact on Japanese defenders cannot be overstated. Captured diaries and post-war interviews reveal consistent themes of terror and helplessness. A Japanese sergeant captured on Okinawa in April 1945 stated through interpreters, "We could defend against their regular flamethrowers. Shoot the operator, he falls, the attack stops. But when every American soldier might carry dragon fire, there is no defense. We could only wait in our caves and hope the fire wouldn't come." By April 1945, Dragon Rifles were standard equipment in all Marine infantry battalions engaged in Pacific operations. The weapon's presence influenced American tactical doctrine. Marine small unit leaders increasingly favored aggressive cave-clearing operations, knowing their squads possessed organic flame capability. Operations that previously required extensive planning and support coordination now fell within the scope of routine infantry actions. The M1E1's operational effectiveness depended on understanding its limitations as thoroughly as its capabilities. The weapon's 45-yard maximum range meant operators needed to close within small arms range of fortified positions, dangerous but manageable given the covering fire from squad members. The 3-burst fuel capacity required careful ammunition management. Operators learned to conserve their flame shots for maximum effect rather than suppressive fire. The fuel delivery system used a clever engineering solution to maintain pressure without adding weight. The compressed air cartridge sat in a housing integrated into the rifle's gas system, connected via a flexible steel hose to the fuel canister. When the operator flipped to flame mode and pulled the trigger, a spring-loaded striker pierced the cartridge seal, releasing compressed air at 850 psi. This pressure forced fuel through a check valve into the projection nozzle and out at approximately 40 feet per second. The piezoelectric igniter, the same technology used in modern barbecue lighters, was the system's most failure-prone component. The igniter required a sharp mechanical impact to generate the electrical spark that ignited the fuel stream. In humid Pacific conditions, the piezoelectric crystal sometimes failed to produce sufficient voltage. Marine armorers learned to coat the igniter assembly with a water-resistant compound, reducing failure rates from 8% to less than 2%. Maintenance proved simpler than anticipated. After each firing sequence, operators were instructed to run a cleaning rod through the projection nozzle to remove carbon buildup. The fuel canister required inspection for leaks, a quick visual check of the seals and connections. The compressed air cartridge housing needed monthly lubrication. Total maintenance time, approximately 10 minutes per week of active use. The fuel mixture itself presented unique handling challenges. M1A1 flamethrower fuel contained benzene and other petroleum distillates that caused skin irritation on prolonged contact. Marines learned to wear gloves when refilling canisters. The thickening agent made the fuel difficult to ignite accidentally. It required sustained heat or an open flame to catch fire, but once burning, it was nearly impossible to extinguish with water. The fuel stuck to surfaces like napalm, burning until completely consumed. Weather affected the Dragon rifle's performance significantly. Rain reduced effective range by 20–30%, as water droplets interfered with the fuel stream's cohesion. Wind above 15 miles per hour could deflect the stream, though operators learned to compensate by aiming slightly into the wind. Extreme heat, temperatures above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, increased fuel vaporization, slightly reducing the duration of each burst, but increasing the fireball effect at maximum range. The weapon's most significant limitation was reload time under fire. Replacing an empty fuel canister required 90 seconds of relative safety, removing the empty canister, connecting a full one, verifying the seal, and conducting a pressure check. In active combat, this meant Dragon rifle operators typically engaged fortified positions, expended their 3 bursts, then reverted to standard rifle duties until the tactical situation allowed refueling. Marines developed innovative tactical techniques. Fire teams learned to coordinate Dragon rifle employment with covering fire. 2 riflemen suppressed enemy positions, while the Dragon rifle operator maneuvered within range. Some units modified their fire team composition, assigning 2 Dragon Rifle operators per squad to ensure continuous flame capability. The most effective technique, developed through trial and error on Iwo Jima, involved simultaneous flame bursts from multiple angles, creating a flame crossfire that made cave positions completely untenable. The Japanese never developed an effective countermeasure. Standard doctrine for defending against American flamethrowers, targeting the operator early, failed against Dragon rifles because identifying the operator was nearly impossible. Japanese engineers experimented with cave ventilation systems and water mist defenses, but these measures proved ineffective against the volume and intensity of Dragon rifle fire. One Japanese innovation did cause problems: wet blanket barriers. Defenders hanging water-soaked blankets inside cave entrances could temporarily block Dragon rifle fuel streams, absorbing the burning liquid before it penetrated deeper into the cave system. Marines countered this by firing multiple bursts: the first to ignite the blanket, the second to exploit the opening, the third to ensure complete penetration. The Dragon rifle's impact on Marine Corps tactical doctrine extended beyond immediate combat applications. Infantry training manuals revised in 1945 incorporated Dragon rifle tactics into standard small unit operations. The weapon validated the concept of distributed firepower, giving specialized capabilities to individual soldiers rather than concentrating them in dedicated support units. This philosophy would influence American military thinking for decades. The M1E1 auxiliary flame projector never received official recognition during World War II. The weapon remained classified secret throughout the war and for 38 years afterward, finally declassified in 1983, under the systematic review of aging military documents. The reasons for classification remain partially redacted in available documents, but appear related to the chemical composition of the fuel mixture and concerns about potential war crimes accusations. Production ceased on August 15, 1945, the day Japan announced its surrender. The final production run totaled 6,147 units, of which 4,200 saw combat deployment in the Pacific Theater. The remaining 2,147 units were shipped to U.S. military bases for training and evaluation. By December 1945, the Marine Corps ordered all Dragon rifles turned in for storage or destruction. Most were destroyed, cut apart with torches, and disposed of as scrap metal. Approximately 300 units were retained for training purposes at Quantico and Camp Pendleton. The exact number of enemy casualties attributable to Dragon rifles remains unknown. Marine Corps after-action reports rarely specified which weapon system achieved specific results. Post-war analysis estimates Dragon rifle operators neutralized between 2,800 and 3,400 fortified positions during the final 6 months of the Pacific War, with estimated enemy casualties between 8,000 and 11,000. These numbers represent defensive positions that previously would have required extensive support assets and likely resulted in significantly higher Marine casualties. The weapon's influence on post-war military development was substantial, but largely unacknowledged due to classification restrictions. The concept of rifle-mounted auxiliary weapons, adding specialized capabilities to standard infantry rifles without replacing their primary function, reappeared in multiple forms. The M2 SOD-3 grenade launcher, developed in the 1960s and mounted beneath the M16 rifle, follows the same philosophical approach. Modern underslung shotgun attachments serve similar tactical purposes. The Chemical Warfare Service's work on Dragon rifle fuel mixtures directly informed post-war napalm development. The thickening agents used in M1A1 flamethrower fuel evolved into the more sophisticated mixtures used in aerial napalm bombs during the Korean and Vietnam Wars. The piezoelectric ignition system influenced modern portable flame devices and even commercial applications like camping stoves and industrial torches. In 1983, when Dragon rifle documents were declassified, several military historians expressed surprise that such an effective weapon system had remained virtually unknown. The Marine Corps had never publicly acknowledged its existence. No war correspondents photographed the weapon in action, partly due to its classified status, partly because most Dragon rifle operations occurred in small unit actions that attracted little press attention. 3 Dragon rifles survive in museum collections. The National Museum of the Marine Corps at Quantico possesses one example, displayed without detailed explanation in a case labeled Experimental Infantry Weapons, 1942-1945. The U.S. Army Ordnance Museum at Aberdeen Proving Ground has another. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History holds a third in its storage collections, never displayed publicly. Modern military forces have occasionally revisioned similar concepts. In 2008, the U.S. Army experimented with rifle-mounted incendiary devices for urban combat operations in Iraq, but concerns about international law and public perception halted development. The Dragon rifle's classification for 38 years reflects the enduring sensitivity around flame weapons, their effectiveness balanced against their psychological and political implications. The weapon's legacy lives most strongly in the memories of Marines who used it. Veterans who carried Dragon rifles rarely spoke about them after the war, honoring classification restrictions and perhaps uncomfortable with the nature of flame warfare. When declassification occurred in 1983, many were deceased. Those who remained shared consistent memories. The weapon worked. It saved lives. It gave individual Marines power to solve tactical problems that previously required extensive support. Thomas Whitmore returned to Michigan in December 1945. He never spoke publicly about the Dragon rifle, didn't know he was legally allowed to until 1983, and by then the details felt too distant, too classified in his memory, too difficult to explain to people who hadn't been there. He kept his service medals in a shoebox in his closet. Died in 1998 at age 76. His obituary mentioned his Marine Corps service without specific details. Corporal James Hutchison survived Peleliu, survived Okinawa, mustered out as a sergeant in November 1945. He returned to Georgia, worked 34 years as a high school shop teacher, taught 3 generations of students how to use metalworking tools safely. In his classroom hung a single photograph. His fire team on Peleliu, 4 young Marines squinting at the camera, weapons slung casually across their shoulders. Students who asked about the photo received the same answer. Just some boys I served with. He never mentioned the Dragon rifle, never explained that he'd carried one of the most effective infantry weapons of World War II. Hutchison passed away in 2004. His family donated his service records to the Marine Corps Historical Center, where they remain accessible to researchers. Lieutenant Crawford earned a Silver Star for actions on Peleliu, promoted to captain, served in Korea, retired as a lieutenant colonel in 1964. In his oral history interview for the Marine Corps History Division, conducted in 1989, he was asked about new weapons and experimental equipment on Peleliu. His answer, "We had access to some specialized equipment I'm not at liberty to discuss." It was effective. The interviewer didn't press. Crawford's complete oral history runs 127 pages. Dragon rifles are mentioned once, obliquely, in that single sentence. Dr. Harold Jensen, the Chemical Warfare Service engineer, who led Dragon rifle development, worked on military incendiary programs until his retirement in 1967. His career encompassed flamethrower improvements, napalm development, and other classified projects. He published 14 technical papers on combustion engineering, none mentioning Dragon rifles. Jensen died in 1994, leaving behind notebooks and technical drawings that remain classified. Of the 4,200 Dragon rifles deployed in combat, none returned home. Marines turned in their units for destruction per orders. A few operators kept small mementos, a compressed air cartridge housing, a piece of the fuel canister harness, but the complete weapons were destroyed. The Marine Corps retained no operational examples, only the 3 museum pieces manufactured specifically for historical preservation. The Japanese soldiers who survived Dragon rifle encounters rarely discuss them. Post-war interviews with former Imperial Japanese Army personnel reveal a consistent pattern. Flame weapons of any type were remembered as the most terrifying aspect of Pacific combat, worse than artillery, worse than naval bombardment, worse than airstrikes. The Dragon rifle's specific terror that any American soldier might suddenly project flame appears in very few Japanese accounts, suggesting either deliberate suppression or genuine trauma-induced memory gaps. Marine Corps casualty statistics tell the story Dragon rifle operators cannot. Between November 1944 and August 1945, Marine infantry units equipped with Dragon rifles suffered 11% fewer casualties in cave warfare operations compared to equivalent units using only conventional weapons. That 11% represents approximately 1,200 Marines who came home instead of dying on Pacific islands. Fathers who saw their children born. Men who built houses, started businesses, taught school, lived full lives because a compact flame projector gave them tactical options that previously didn't exist. The Marines who carried Dragon rifles into caves on Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa did so without glory, without recognition, without even being able to tell their families what weapon they'd used. They adapted, improvised, and survived using a classified tool that gave them fighting chances in impossible tactical situations. They asked for nothing except to complete their mission and go home. If this story moved you, honor these Marines by hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel. Share this video with anyone interested in military history. These stories deserve to be told. These innovations deserve recognition. Turn on notifications so you never miss future content about the forgotten weapons and classified equipment that changed warfare. Drop a comment below. Are you watching from a location that saw World War II combat? Did any of your family members serve in the Pacific Theater? What other classified World War II weapons should we investigate? The Dragon rifle remained secret for 38 years. The men who used it kept that secret, honored their oaths, carried those memories silently. Now their story is told. These Marines, average age 22, carrying 8-pound flame projectors into hell, changed infantry warfare forever. They deserve to be remembered.